Hi guys, welcome to the Power DSP lessons. In the last lesson, we have seen what is convolution with an example. In this part, we are going to see the same example and understand the concept little bit more clearly. Let's get started. As we know, convolution connects three signals, namely input signal x of n, impulse response signal h of n, and output signal y of n. The concept of convolution is that if we know the impulse response of the system, then we can find the output for any possible input. Let's prove this with an example. Let's take a linear system which is having an impulse response h of n. Now we take an input signal x of n with 4 samples. The goal here is to find the output for the input signal x of n. For that, what we are going to do here is that to send only one sample at a time instead of all the samples. Then we are going to represent that sample in terms of shifted and scaled version of the unit impulse. Next, we use the linear system properties to find the output for that input sample. The same procedure is then repeated for each of the individual input samples. Finally, the output y of n is obtained by applying the superposition principle. Okay, let's start this from the first sample of x of n, that is x of 0, which is equal to 1, and it is exactly an impulse. So the output is an impulse response h of n. If the input is impulse, then the output is an impulse response. We know that. Next, let's take the second sample of x of n, which is equal to 2. This sample is shifted one time unit from the origin. So we represent this sample in terms of shifted and scaled version of impulse 2 del n minus 1. The same amount of shifting and scaling must appear at the output if the system is linear. Hence, the output is 2h of n minus 1. h of n, that is impulse response, is multiplied by 2 and shifted by 1. We take the third sample next, which is equal to minus 1. We can represent this sample as minus 1 del of n minus 2, and the output would be minus 1 h of n minus 2. h of n is multiplied by minus 1 and shifted by 2. Finally, we take the last sample, that is fourth sample, x of 3, which is equal to 3. We represent this sample as 3 del of n minus 3, and the output would be 3h of n minus 3. h of n is multiplied by 3 and shifted by 3. Now we have 4 outputs for 4 individual inputs. If we add all these 4 individual input signals, we get our input signal x of n. By superposition, we know that the output of the system to the sum of the individual input signal is equal to sum of the response of the system to each of the individual signal. So the output y of n would be equal to the addition of all these individual outputs. Even if we change the input signal x of n, we can find the output for that input by applying the same procedure and concept. So we can find the output for any input if we know the impulse response. Okay guys, that's all for today's lesson. See you. Bye bye.